I want Hilary Swank in the next Terminator movie so bad.
There is nothing in this world that you give me to do to hug a robot.
It's because it's so incredible and intricate that it's impossible not to notice.
Music's the core of this movie.
I was born again to watch this movie.
You'll find redeeming things and you'll be thinking about it for a long time afterwards.
There was no bone saw.
Just John hamming it up over here.
2.5 out of 3 of us recommend it.
Everybody loves talking about movies. Let's talk about movies.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Boz Ryan podcast today. We're glad to have you on as we kind of go into our favorite classic horror film, It.
Can you call it classic if we're talking about the new one?
Oh, I don't think it can be a classic. Our new wave.
Modern classic.
Our modern.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
Nailed it.
But also, guys, it's Casey here who's kind of conducting tonight. And we got Josh.
What's that?
We got Vince.
I got stung by a bee this week.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was actually a wasp
Where?
in my backyard. I had this great
Where on your
idea.
body?
On my fingers, yeah. So it's not as swollen as it was this
yeah.
morning, but compared to
Whoa.
yesterday, it was real bad.
That's a gnarly sting finger.
I know, it was a bad day. I was kind of asking for it, though. I have a macro lens on my camera. I thought it'd be really cool to get some cool shots. I'll show you later. They look awesome.
No, he has great pictures of the wasps. They look cool.
But the bee got pissed.
Nice.
And it's funny. He'll show you, but, for you guys, obviously, won't be able to see these unless maybe you tune into Vince's personal Instagram account. If you post them up there, you can see the progression of the wasps just chilling to gradually turning and then lifting up their wings right before.
Yeah, I was watching all this through the viewfinder. I was like, they don't look so happy. And then all of a sudden, I see one just like fly towards me, and I just booked it out of there and got me on the hand before I got away.
Was it a black wasp or a yellow jacket?
No, it was a yellow jacket.
Oh, okay. That's nice. And we have our favorite special guest back with us tonight. Hello, Michael.
Hey!
Welcome back.
Yeah!
You tired of doing horror movies yet?
No, every day, all day. I can't wait for October. I'm assuming you're going to do horror movies all month.
We're just kind of like getting an early start into
All right,
it.
well,
Yeah.
I'm always here for the horror.
The season is upon us, and because It Chapter 2 is coming out, we figured let's get a week ahead, do the original, I guess not the original, but the new It that just came out.
2017 It.
Yeah, the 2017 It. That's the word. It, not Ent. This isn't Treebeard's movie, but the 2017 It. And we're pretty stoked to talk about. Before we kind of dive into that, let's kind of do a quick recap of how the week's been in movies. Vince, do you want to start us out?
I've been dying to talk about this. The Dark Crystal TV show came out this week. Have you guys started it yet?
No, I haven't seen the movie.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, I missed
I'm
it.
assuming Josh, neither of you.
No, sorry, man.
That's
know
okay.
me
It
too
came
well.
out in like 83, so it's real old. It's before my time, too.
I watched
but-
the movie, but I haven't started into the series yet.
Okay, I am diehard fan of The Dark Crystal. I watched that movie so many times growing up. They've just started about 3 years ago. I think 3 or 4 years ago, they started releasing novels, like young adult novels based on the Dark Crystal lore. And I've read 2 of the 4. I think the 4th one comes out this year. So they're really good. They are young adult, so they're kind of childish, but they kind of expand on the Dark Crystal universe. This TV series, this Netflix TV series that just came out, they recreated the puppets, so it still has that same Dark Crystal feel. There is still some callbacks to the original movie where it's kind of corny. Like the original Dark Crystal is so bad, but in the best ways, if that makes sense. And this one takes that feel and makes it good. It's not bad good, it's good. And I just wanted to say, please, 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 people, watch this TV show. Because if I don't get a season 2, I will be so, so sad. It's so cool the way they've done it. The books tie into the TV show ties into the books, and they're just kind of making this expanded universe kind of like a Star Wars or whatever, but in the Dark Crystal, and it's really good. So if you guys haven't started it, start that now. Please help me get a season 2.
How many episodes?
10 episodes, 1 hour a piece-ish.
Movie
long.
first, I'm assuming?
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
It's a prequel to the movie.
Does it tie in to the Labyrinth?
No, not at all.
Oh, dang it.
I know. For some reason, everyone ties those 2 movies together.
Yeah,
Maybe
they're
they
both
came out at the same
Jim
time.
Henson.
Oh, is
Jim
that what it is?
Henson. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. Well, and David Bowie. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm already 5 episodes in. It's creepy. It's funny. It's dark. It's beautiful. It's almost all practical with some CGI tie-ins. I mean, there's a lot of CGI too, but like all of the they brought the puppets back. It's so cool. Go check it out, please.
And in case, you're thinking, maybe that's still not my thing, though, just to, name drop a few names if you like people. Andy Samberg is in it.
Lena Headey, I think that's her name. Lena Headey from...
Wait, Cersei?
Yeah,
from
Cersei's in
Game
it.
of Thrones.
I'm in.
What's her
Get in.
face?
They've
from
got
Game
like
of Thrones?
3 characters from Game of Thrones.
Natalie Dormer's in it, too. Toby Jones, not from Game of Thrones, but Tony Jones.
She's the king's wife.
Yeah,
The 2 kings' wife.
Tommen's wife.
Tommen's wife. Tommen Baratheon.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
the
I can't
younger
remember her
one.
name in the show.
No, wait. Like Cersei. Yeah.
No, Cersei's
No, the
daughter-in-law.
younger.
Oh,
Cersei's
okay.
in it, and so is the daughter-in-law,
Yeah, Natalie Dormer.
and so is Mercendi. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure she's in there. Mark Hamill's in it.
Awkwafina's in it.
Aquafina's
Oh,
in
cool.
it. Sigourney Weaver's in it for a little bit. The guy from Kingsman, I can never remember his name. He just did Rocket Man 2. He's the main character in it.
Edgerton.
Yeah, Taron Egerton. Just an awesome cast. It's full of like world building and politics of the world, and it's just so good.
Dear Mecca, do you recommend it even for someone who hasn't seen the movie?
Yes, but go into it knowing it's weird. Like it's the weird little puppets and super creepy Skeksis puppets. Like it's pretty out there, and I think it's not going to get a mainstream following like a Game of Thrones because it's a bunch of like weird kind of mouse looking people and gargoyles, the gargoyle looking thing. So it's not going to be able to get as much of a following as something a little more mainstream, but that's what makes it so cool and unique. Like it just looks so cool. Like having the actual puppets there make it look like you can reach out and touch it. I listened to a thing, they talked about maybe doing it as a cartoon, and then the guys who were going to work on it were like, no, let's do this how it's supposed to be done. And so they put their time and their love into it, and they've just really made a story that I've really enjoyed, and I've been nerding out on it like crazy. My wife is so tired of rolling her eyes at me and laughing at me. It's just great, and I'd love to see what you guys think about it.
Cool. Check it out.
What about you, Michael? Anything good on the watch list?
Yeah. I saw Ready or Not, which was
I need to see it.
It was really cool. It was like really fun, and then there's a real hard left turn at the end, and I was like, oh, that makes a movie. That is like horror movies are hard to end.
Yeah.
Either they completely ruin everything or they stick it, and now this one was cool. Really cool.
Good.
I can't really talk about it.
That's
more than
exactly the
that.
conversation that we had when we watched the trailer. I remember Josh
yeah.
being like, that could be really great or just absolute garbage. I don't remember exactly what you said.
You
but
know
something along
what?
those
It
lines.
might be garbage for some people.
It has really, really good reviews, though.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know. Horror's so divisive. So, and it was like horror, comedy, action. It was barely horror. It was like gore, action, comedy.
Someone described it as a dark humor to me.
Yeah, it was that. And then a little bit of Mindhunter, season 2.
I really want to start back into that. We started watching The Haunting of Hill House again,
Cool.
but I've been like wanting to start into Mindhunter because I feel like this is the season to watch movie like a series like that.
Absolutely.
I mean,
September,
now that
October.
fall is rolling in again, I'll have to watch. I didn't watch The Haunting of Hill House first time around when it came out.
Ooh, you're in
I
for a
know.
treat.
You gotta
Is
grade
it
it.
right?
It is a delight.
The director is doing a new movie. What is it? Why can't I remember?
I don't know. We'll look it up and we'll
Okay.
check it out. I actually watched a lot of stuff this week, but just to highlight one or shed bad light on one. On Netflix recently this week, my wife was so excited. I came home one day and she said, Josh, I know what we're going to watch tonight. And I said, okay, what? And she said, John Carter. And I was like, what is that? I've never heard of it. And so we watched it, and it was not that great. Are you mad at me,
I enjoyed
Michael?
it. I like that movie.
I haven't seen it. I just heard it was a real big flop.
I was talking to Vince a little bit about it earlier at work, and I was like, it was kind of good, like at the end, I enjoyed the ending. I thought it was clever, especially compared to the rest of the movie. But so much of it was just like trying to be like a big Hollywood action movie, and I was just laughing at it most of the time. Like, this isn't really spoil. It happens right at the beginning. There's this one part where he says, like, he's just trying to get something, but he has like a bounty on him or something. I don't know. And so this guy tries to stop him from getting it, and then he like attacks him, and he has got a gun to his head, and he has a list of stuff he wants, and so he's like, beans. The first item on the list is beans. And I was roaring with laughter, and my wife's like, what? And I'm like, what do you mean, what? So yeah,
It does have its cheesy moments.
yeah. I mean, like I said, like, it wasn't awful. I didn't like hate it. You know, it's not a bad movie. I just, you know,
It's been on my like
It's
Netflix
whatever.
list for months and months and months and months. I don't think I'll ever get around to it.
yeah.
Probably not. It's one of those. It's one of those that if you don't have the ultimate desire to watch it, you'll never get around to it because it's a little far fetched. But I enjoyed it.
More people would have enjoyed it if it was just called John Carter of Mars.
Yes.
Don't just call it John Carter. Nobody knows what's going on.
Or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it
I
John
don't
Carter of Earth? No, is it John Carter? Of
It's
Earth?
John Carter of Mars.
Well, yeah. That's
Okay.
like,
It's
The
weird.
book.
So the guy who directed The Haunting of Hill House, by the way, he's directing Doctor Sleep.
Oh, whoa!
Which one?
Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep. I think you said
Yeah.
Doctor. Yeah.
Whoa,
Doctor
So
Sleep.
there you
Yeah,
go.
That's gonna be great.
that's exciting. I
it was very exciting.
didn't realize that my level of excitement for that movie could go up higher.
Now
did.
it is.
Now it's up to 11.
All right, Casey.
Okay.
Your last one. What's up?
So this week, I watched a ton of stuff this week. We watched The Good Boys, which is a great fun comedy if you're in the right mood for it. It's a little bit silly. It'll really take you back to being a kid and discovering life, I think, but on a more comedic turn of it. And then we started watching The Haunting of Hill House again, like I said, and that was rad. But I did watch, and I purchased and watched all 3 John Wicks in like 72 hours. And it was so great, and I watched all the bonus stuff. So I think we're gonna have to do like a little mini series on John Wick because I loved it. I'm loving it so much right now.
Keep the year of Keanu going, I guess.
Yeah.
It'll never end. The life of Keanu forever. He just turned 55 yesterday too.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to Keanu.
That's
good.
not 55. That's true.
This is 55.
I would love to do that movie. I cannot imagine a better use of your time than watching all 3 of those movies back to back.
My dog watched most of it with me too. That's the best part.
Oh my gosh, that's the
How
best.
appropriate.
By the third one, she's got like a bulletproof vest and she's got little goggles on, and you're just outfitting.
And at the beginning, you're like covering her eyes. Don't watch this part. It's too
Oh.
sad.
Well, at the
Spoilers.
beginning, she was like really concerned about what happened, and I was like, I think that's what got her hooked. Was just seeing what was going on. She was just like, wow. So it was great. Me and my dog watched the whole John Wick trilogy this week. But yeah, that was a week in movies. Anyone else have any last movie words to say before we dive into more of it?
Oh, remember to go watch Dark Crystal.
I just like how you're like, oh, wait, go watch more, please.
I was really ready actually for something new. And so,
Perfect. So Dark Crystal it is. Go watch it for Vince's sake and the sake of all other Dark Crystal fanboys and girls out there.
go watch Dark Crystal so that Vince can get his second season and so that he can relax and then finally finish Stranger Things.
Oh, I finished it.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, tell me
Yeah,
spoilers because I want to talk. Oh, we'll talk
No,
about
we
it
can't
later.
do that.
Sorry.
We'll talk about it another time.
Man.
Yeah, we should really finally do an episode on Stranger Things season 3 because
I'm just so proud of you.
Yeah, I made it finally. It took me weeks and weeks, but we did it.
It's been months.
I know. It took me over a month to watch Stranger Things season 3, and I'm already halfway through Dark Crystal in like 5 days.
It's all right. It's
makes me
understandable.
question what's important here.
It's because I watched Stranger Things with my wife,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's hard to find nights to do it together.
That's true.
Dark Crystal I can watch whenever I want,
because she doesn't want to watch it.
and she does not want to watch it.
What are you watching tonight, Vince? A puppet movie? What are you watching? I'm sorry, it's not that like I shouldn't trivialize it, but it's like one of those things where you're like, I'm gonna watch this thing, and I was like, have at it.
Yeah.
That's how it is with cooking films.
That's me. I'm watching The Good Place right now, season 3, so I can get ready for season 4. And my wife's like, "No, I don't want to." Even though we watched the first 2 seasons together. I'm like, fine.
It's fantastic
I'll
and
do it
wonderful.
myself. Anyways,
Place.
let's get going. Casey, do you got this week's film and a tweet?
Oh yes, I do. I do have this week's film in a tweet. It's great. Revolutionary clown reemerges like Rumpelstiltskin after a 27-year snooze, hungry for fear and children, stealing arms, lives, and creating nightmares one scare at a time.
That was good.
Yep.
Boom. I liked it.
That's it.
I mean, I always like it, but that was a really good one. So go check out and retweet that from Casey's profile at I am Casey Lee, right?
Nailed it.
Boom.
So, this movie, directed by Andy Muschietti, written by Chase Palmer, Cary Fukunaga, and Gary Doberman, was released on September 8th, 2017, my birthday, just saying. Budget of $35 million. It had a worldwide gross of $700 million. It broke a record it grossed double the record for opening weekend of a horror movie, and is the second largest R-rated opening, just under Deadpool. This is all according to IMDb, so I don't know how true this still is, but this is on IMDb. It still is there.
Another fun fact is, obviously, for its time, because I'm pretty sure that Endgame broke the record again. It broke the record for when its teaser trailer was released. It broke the record for the number of views in the first 24 hours. The record before was like Fast 7, had like 132 million, and this got 180 million.
Whoa.
In the first day that it was released.
Wait, what was the one before it?
Fast 7.
Fast 7 was the
Yeah.
highest.
That was the one though where after
Paul
Walker had died, and
that
so
makes sense.
people were really on that like Paul Walker sadness train, and they're like, we got to get more Paul Walker, man.
Yeah, everyone was sad about that.
They are not the same without Paul Walker.
It's so true.
I don't want to go into a Fast and Furious
Yeah,
talk.
I think we should talk about that, because I think we could talk about that the whole episode and be like, how has Fast 7 changed since Paul Walker's untimely death? And that could be an episode in itself. But no,
It's going to be listed on the thing. Episode 15, It Chapter 1, and then it's just going to be all Fast and the Furious stuff for the whole thing.
Chapter 1 / Fast and the Furious. Another fun fact,
yeah, go ahead.
just really quick, in case hopefully I'm not stealing it if you've got it on your list, is that they almost got the Duffer Brothers to direct this movie. They were on like the list of considerations, but then they were turned down because they didn't have a big enough film rapport, I think is what it said in the article I read, which I was like, that's super crazy.
Was this before Stranger Things then?
It was. This was actually, I'm actually really happy that it happened, because when they got turned down, they had been thinking about making Stranger Things, but then they went to do this, they got turned down, so then they went and made Stranger Things
Oh,
for
interesting.
Netflix. So,
It's kind of cool looking at the information about it. Guillermo del Toro was interested in doing it as well, but he was just too busy, so he never found the opportunity.
He's always too busy.
because
Yeah,
he did
he's
The
too
Shape of
busy
Water
making
that year, right?
Alita.
No.
No, he didn't make that. Sorry, now I'm embarrassed because that was Robert Rodriguez. I'm gonna lay down and sleep now.
No, he did The Shape of Water that year, didn't he?
And he won the Best Picture, so I think it was worth
He
it.
did all right.
Yeah.
I guess he
And
made
Best
the right
Director, right?
choice. Yeah.
Oh,
Also, I think it was I can't remember his name, but there was another director attached to this, and he was going through all the process of I want to say it was Fukunaga, but I'm not sure. One of the guys who wrote it was going to direct it. He cast. We were talking about We're the Millers earlier. You know that kid? What's his name?
Jason Sudeikis?
No, the kid that's in it.
Will Poulter.
Yeah, Will Poulter. You got it. He was actually cast as Pennywise before that director left. And then when that director left, Will Poulter's like, oh, this isn't going the way that we had originally discussed it, and the new director's not working out. And so he quit as well. And then they cast Bill Skarsgård.
What?
Yeah, so it's
No.
it's gone through some production.
The movie industry
Problems.
is crazy.
I like Will Poulter. Don't get me wrong here, but I'm so glad he wasn't Pennywise. I'm just saying that. Will Poulter, good actor. Terrible Pennywise option. End of story.
Well, you want to hear some of the other casting options?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to read them off, and you can tell me which one you would have liked the most. So Will Poulter was one of them. Kirk Acevedo was one of them. He's kind of a lesser-known actor. The only thing that I knew him from was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He plays kind of that jerk character that brings the gun into the apes community.
Oh, yeah.
So he was considered. Hugo Weaving, again, was in the running, apparently, for it, who seems to be considered in every movie we do. And the producer of the movie wanted Tilda Swinton, but never really. She was busy, too.
As Pennywise?
As Pennywise.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been
She
different.
would have been Did you guys see Suspiria.
No, I still haven't seen it.
Oh, yeah. So she would have been amazing as Pennywise, just terrifying. I think she would have just been, man, Suspiria. Put that on the list for October, guys.
October.
Yeah, that's a...
Yeah, out of those 4, I think she would have been the best. Hugo Weaving, they said that he nailed the creepy aspect of Pennywise, but he couldn't play the childlike version of Pennywise, and so they didn't want to keep him.
Hello, Mr. Kids.
Yeah,
Mr.'s Kids. Like, he would have been like the agent whatever from...
Hello, Mr.
Smith?
No, I can't remember the name of the
Agent
kids' names,
Smith,
though.
but he would have been like, hello, Mr. Anderson. But I forget the real kids' names there. Sorry, I just based them all off. Hello, Mr. Finn Wolfhard, or whatever your name is.
So, just wrapping up real quick, the movie has a critic score of 86% and an audience score of 84% on Rotten Tomatoes, and IMDb only gives it a 7.4, which I think is a joke. I think that's severely underrated. Am I wrong?
I mean, I loved it the first time. I watched it again today, and I was a little bored.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
You can turn Michael's mic off. he is no longer
No,
invited.
it's
to
a great
this.
movie.
No, but why were you a little bored? I'm really curious about that.
I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I've been thinking about it all day. I
Think-
don't know why I didn't care the second time as much. I
guess
really
that's-
don't.
I guess that's true. I guess I was also not as into it as I was like the first few times I watched it, or like it could also be because pretty recently I watched it. I watched it like a month ago, and then I watched it again for this, and so maybe because it was so recent. But then again, I think, and I'm like, even though it's revolutionary, all this stuff, I was like, it's a 7.4, you know, like it's.
Whoa.
Yeah, I really don't think it was that revolutionary. It was a huge mainstream horror, but I don't think it's done anything that other horror movies have done before it. Like the story itself was different, but for like villains and things like that, like Freddy Krueger has been feeding on fear for 30 years.
The reason for me that it stands out, and the reason it sets itself apart from other horror movies to me, is the balance that it's able to make between this kind of carefree lifestyle of a kid and making you feel that like you're back in middle school and getting out for the summer and hanging out with your friends, going down and hanging out in the river and having rock fights and playing and having just being a kid. How well they balance that aspect of it all with the horror aspects of it. There isn't a lot of moments that make me jump, with one exception, and that's the scene in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Every
about.
time, man.
Every time it gets me. I don't know why I always forget about it, but every time it makes me jump. It's the part. We're gonna jump into spoilers here, so heads up,
Yeah.
everybody. This is spoilers from here on out.
Spoilers.
The scene where Beverly is fighting her dad off, and she ends up hitting her dad across the head with the piece of the toilet, and then she goes to walk away, and Pennywise is there and grabs her, scares me every single time. Somehow I always forget it.
Yeah, I always forget it, and it's because it's like right after a huge climactic moment. I mean, she's been fighting him, and she hits him, and instead of like right after she hits him, she looks, and he's down, and she's like, okay, and then it shows her from a downward angle, like looking up at her, and then she goes to leave, and so as she turns, it pans to the door, and as she does that, Pennywise, he's like up, right? He's like up, like almost in the ceiling, and he like reaches down and grabs her, and it's so sudden that
It gets me every time, and that's what I love about it. Is like it's not the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it does have its jump scares, and the way that it merges kind of this like innocence with horror. I can't think of any other movie that's done that, and I think that's why it stands out.
Well, I also feel like it wasn't. This movie isn't full of entirely of cheap thrills. I think too, like cheap scares, because like really getting into it, the one part that thoroughly scares me every single time as well is the part where the guy goes down into the sewer tunnel with the fire and the like spraying the hairspray and the flame, right? And then there's the girl and the kids and the heads, and then all of a sudden there they come and it's just terrifying to me. And for me, because I like to explore and I like to go do stuff. Like if there's like a cave or there's like a what do you call it, like a canyon down, I like to explore that kind of stuff. And that's like this type of shit that actually freaks me out because of different things that I've like grown up, like different lore and mythology type things down in that area where we grew up, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I should be mindful of that. And now we're in a different place. Like, going back to my tweet, like, the back history, and we're going to learn about this more, I think, in the second movie, is more about Pennywise's origin as well. Like, what created the monster? Like, what possessed him, and now why is he so long? And obviously, a lot of people know from the original show, that the original made-for-TV series, that's kind of a weird... I think it's the weirdest subject of the whole movie in general, originally, but they haven't gotten into
Not yet.
space.
Pennywise's story.
Yeah, they haven't gotten into there yet, and I'm excited to see where it goes, but I'm also excited. It's supposed to be like scary.
Cool.
Like, this is supposed to be scary
Adult
AF.
fears.
Yeah.
Well, this one it runs the gamut on all children's fears, from the littlest fear of the boy being scared of the painting, all the way up to Beverly's
Legitimate scare.
real fear of being assaulted by her father. So yeah, the deepness of the movie in that aspect is great. So I would assume the next one, all these major, like, being an adult problems, like what actually is.
Yeah, it's not going to be so
Scary.
much like mummies coming out and jumping at you, or a
Exactly.
leopard coming out because you're scared of getting sick or something. It's going to be like legitimate fears that adults have, like tax season,
Dying alone.
dying alone.
Well, that did bring up something that I wanted to talk about. What do you think that if Pennywise showed up to you now, what do you think he would show you?
Probably taking my family away or something like that. You know, that whole one.
I thought about that same question. Like, I wanted to bring that up too, and for some reason I kept forgetting to think about it. I don't know. It's weird because I don't know. There's, as an adult, like, what does scare us? Because monsters aren't really a thing. And even like watching this movie, like we kind of talked about, there's not a lot of jump scares. They don't work as well for us anymore because we kind of have grown up, and we're kind of, I don't want to say out of that mindset, but we kind of are. We kind of understand that this is fake. So what would really cause me to feel that way? And I guess the only thing I can think of is like you said, like if something happened to my family, if something like with this movie, like when Bev gets taken, like that's the worst fear I could have. And Pennywise could really mess with you in that way. Maybe home invasion, I think would be something they could really, even just like a masked person coming into my house.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, so I thought about it a little bit, and obviously one of the big things I thought of was like my wife being taken away from me or something like that. But then I also thought about it, and I'm like, he could probably do that, and that would be something that scares me the most. But then again, if you got like some huge like tarantula with wings like flying at me, that would also scare the shit out of me, like way bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's even more scary now because we have, like I said, we're out of that mindset of monsters are scary. So to actually see a monster would be even scarier to us.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true. Like, I watched a video the other day that my wife showed me, and it's one of those that's like meant to make you jump, right? And I didn't know. It was like there was like a spider on the wall, and the lady's like going for it, and then right as she goes for it, the spider like jumps, and it's a huge spider, and just jumps right at the camera. I felt my heart like stop for like 2 seconds. Like as I jumped, I was freaking out. It was bad. So I'm pretty scared of that crap. So I'm pretty sure it'd be a mix of those.
I'm afraid of, like, if I was camping, something happening while camping.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, something like that. Like, for instance, like being at the lake and just getting like tugged under. Because like I love to go swimming at the lake. Like swimming in alpine lakes is one of my favorite things to do. And oh man, that would freak me out. Something like just
Somebody
grabs my
grabs
leg.
your ankle.
Or like Pennywise is just swimming as like an exact mirror of me when I look down in the water and just comes up and like right down.
Oh, man, that scared me.
It'd be
I
terrifying.
don't know why I always think of that. Like, obviously, there's like fish and stuff like that, but whenever I'm swimming in one of those lakes, I'm like, I know this isn't connected to anything, but I'm like, but what if there's just like some big, like, weird fish or
Loch Ness.
weird
Ness.
little whale thing in this lake that's gonna get me?
Well, and the hardest thing about water too is sometimes like we don't know what's down there. Like the ocean is the ocean is more unknown than space, right? And so for us too, like they're discovering freaking like 500-year-old sharks these days still, and they're like, oh yeah, this was going around the same time as this was built. It's like,
Yeah.
what's down there?
Speaking of water being terrifying, it has 2 amazing scenes in the water. That first one, well, the very first scene of the movie with the rainstorm with Pennywise being in the sewer. That was terrifying. And then the second one is when Bill goes into the basement and Pennywise creeps up. His like eyes come out of the water.
Using Georgie as a puppet.
Yeah.
That's actually
That's a scary scene.
So when Vince was like talking to like, we're not scared by jump scares, right? What was the creepiest part about that scene right there to me, and I've put a lot of thought into this, is that you see him start to emerge, right? It's not just like Georgie like being weird and like moving. It's you start seeing Pennywise's arm, then you start seeing him, and he's just down there like, and they don't make it so it's like Pennywise is like looking good the whole time, like his hair is up and he's made up. He looks friggin' terrifying. He's just like wet, like, and then he just comes out, and you're like, what the hell? Like, that's what scares me.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Like, so that's what they do in the movie is they go through each one of the characters and shows what their biggest fear is. And Bill's would be finding Georgie and losing him again, right? Like, or permanently losing Georgie. And Pennywise is playing. He's using Georgie as a puppet. You see his arm going up as like the dummy.
Yeah.
And he just brings him in. He finds a way to bring him in, and he finds a way to scare him the worst, because that's what Pennywise is. He's this monster from another dimension or something that feeds on the fear of, feeds on fear and hunts children the most, because the children's fear is the most tasty of them all. I think it'd be cool. Which of all the kids' fears would you guys say is the closest to your own?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Bill's.
Losing Georgie?
Yeah. Well, so I had a brother die.
So let's go through.
And that's like why it's so like scary to me. It's like I felt the same way because I was gone. I wasn't around when my brother died, and so I really like that's been like one of the biggest things that's ever haunted me in life. Like I'm not trying to get like too deep and scary on you guys or like too personal, I guess is the reality of it, but that's my biggest fear because I was gone. And I kid you not, there were times I expected to come home from where I was 6 months later and expect that it was all a joke or that like I dreamed it. And when it was real was when like, you know, like, and to go in and be like where Bill like eventually like at the end finds and like sees Georgie's raincoat, does it. That's the same way I felt when I went and saw like my brother's headstone for the first time, was just like that was like the big finale of recognizing how final it was.
Uh-huh. So could you really see yourself a lot more in Bill than any of the characters in the movie?
Yeah, that's like my biggest fear is because, yeah, I'm not explaining better than I did just barely without getting a little choked up, but that was it. Like I saw myself as like a person who's better with friends and family, right? And that's how I see myself. And like my brother being taken away like prematurely was the biggest thing ever, like that changed my life because I was so influenced by it. And I remember people like when you know how the bully kid is like, you get a pass this year because of your brother and stuff like that. People didn't expect much of me for a while after like I came home because my brother I was still coping with that in a way, and people wouldn't bring up my brother, like, or they wouldn't talk about his name around me, and I was always like, oh, like, I wanted people to talk, I wanted someone to talk about it, right, but then no one knew how to talk about it in a way that wasn't a trigger or something like that, right, and so,
that's definitely one of those, like, real-life situations that, I mean, pulling it back to the movie, that Pennywise could really, like, take advantage of.
Yeah, well, that's the hardest thing is, like, that's what scared me the most. Like all the other things scared me. Like I'm terrified of sickness. I'm terrified of like I don't like clowns. Whoever really likes clowns, I'm sorry, you're really sketchy. But
not to make it light out of this after the serious
confession
of your soul,
I dropped it really deep, but no, like that was for me like really relatable, and it shouldn't be something that we dwell on and bring the low of, because this movie, the fears of it are real, and they can sometimes be a little bit humorous at the same time, I think, because the guy chasing after the kid with his pills was scary but funny.
Yeah.
He's missing a nose.
Well, fun little fact about the movie being made. When the trailer dropped, it pissed off the clown community. Like, they got real mad because they felt like this movie was portraying clowns in a negative stereotype, and it was pushing the stereotype that clowns are scary.
Man, wasn't this like just right after that whole thing was going down where people
Yeah.
were dressing up as clowns and like killing people everywhere?
Well, I don't know. Killing?
I
Was it
think
killing?
they're just scaring
Oh my
people.
gosh.
I don't remember any violence.
I thought that there was at least like a couple times where
maybe.
I
stuff
hope
like
not.
that.
No, yeah,
I
yeah.
do remember the balloons, people tying balloons to like
Oh, yeah,
sewer
that,
grates.
that was cool though. I liked that.
Yeah. No, there was actually like 2 or 3 years in a row where people were dressing up as clowns and like standing on the side of the street with like real weapons and machinery and stuff like that, doing creepy
Or
stuff.
just like doing crime.
Yeah, committing crimes and stuff like
Doing
that.
crime.
Doing some crime.
Let's go do some crime, kids.
Yeah.
Michael, you brought up the first the first scene of the movie, the intro. I want to talk about that real bad. Like, is that? I've been racking my brain trying to, out of all the horror movies, and I'm not nearly as familiar with horror movies as you are. Is this the best intro to a horror movie you've ever seen?
I mean, it's an amazing. I don't know if I'd ever say best because that's loaded. It's
Yeah.
big. That's a big one. But it definitely, that opening scene sets the movie apart and lets the audience know immediately that we're not the 1990 version.
Mm-hmm.
We are a horror movie. This is it. Like this is and to go in like that to tear a child's arm off within the first 10 minutes of the movie, it's like, oh, okay, this is the movie we're watching. All right, here we go. Let's do this. It is. I would put it in top 10. You have that. Scream is one of
that's good too.
the best. The remake of Friday the 13th was really, really good. They clump the first 3 movies, and just bunch of violence, and then title Friday the 13th. Oh man! But this one, it's good. It's real good, and the way he drags his poor little body away from the sewer.
Yes.
Ugh.
So that's one of the differences from the book is and does the TV show start the same way too? I never saw the 1990s version.
They start with like the kid in the boat, which is pretty much scene for scene, but I can't remember how Georgie goes missing or anything like
Okay.
that. Like I've forgotten.
I know they use a photo book a lot.
Okay,
Uh,
so
that-
so they
yeah, I
have
think that's the way
so
it
in this
starts.
one they have Georgie chasing the boat down the river. It falls into the sewer grate where he meets Pennywise for the first time. And I don't know, I love this scene. Like you said, it sets this tone for the whole movie. Killing a kid in the first 10 minutes, like meeting Pennywise and the interaction that he has with Georgie and figuring out who this villain is and what he's capable of and what he's actually doing. You know, can you imagine not being familiar with this property at all and then just seeing the start of the movie and just being like, what are we getting into here?
Yeah. The way that Pennywise talks to Georgie, I was thinking about it when I was watching it today. The way that Georgie is trying to like back himself away from Pennywise is like everything a parent teaches a child. Like, say you have to go, you can't talk to strangers, and then the way that Pennywise was talking to Georgie was every parent's deepest fear was like, oh well, I'm Pennywise, we're not strangers anymore, let's be friends. Like, oh, I was thinking about it as I'm not a parent, but like if I was a parent and somebody was talking to my child that way, that was like, oh man, that is exactly what you would say to get a kid to get in your van, like get in the sewer.
Get in the sewer.
Well, what's also kind of crazy is the way, like you said, he's talking to him in ways that lure him in, right? That get him there. But also, Pennywise isn't a great communicator at all. His speech is weird. He kind of talks very childlike at the same time. And then he uses references that the kid gets, and the kid's is interesting. He's like, oh man, the whole circus got washed away, and do you smell that? Do you hear that? And he's like, popcorn. He's like, popcorn, stuff like that. And it's just so, it's terrifying that that's how simple it is to lure someone away, and they portray it so well.
But also that's when you see, like you mentioned, that he's not a great communicator, because even though he has these tricks and these things that he can do to sort of lure him in, you see that he's also not like earthly. He's something else, because he goes pop, 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 and all this stuff, and they're laughing, and then he's just like, And then Georgie's just like, wait, what's going on? And so then he has to get back into it and like, oh, you can't leave without your boat. So
Yeah,
so
he
like
has,
you said, you can just
he has that moment where he just like kind of drifts off, and one of his eyes just kind of starts to drift off to the
starts
side, and he
drooling.
starts to drool a little bit, like his brain was on
Yeah.
like pause for a
His
second.
Hunger took over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like he could smell, because I'm sure Georgie was scared. He's
like,
talking
"We've
to
got
this
this
creepy
done."
clown in a sewer. Like, I'm sure he started like tasting that and just started to like lose his focus, just ready for the for the strike or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, like we talked about, Georgie reaches in, tries to grab the little boat, and Pennywise just mutates and just completely rips his arm off and leaves him laying there in the street, crawling away just in fear and just feeding off of that fear from him. And as Georgie crawls away across the road, you just see this long clown arm just stretch out across the street and grab him and pull him back into the movie. And it's like, here we go.
Yeah.
Like, this is the movie.
The title drops, It.
It.
That was a beautiful shot as well because it was overhead and it was raining, and the way that the water was flowing into the drain, they didn't pull any punches with this. There was blood pouring out of Georgie's arm, and it was really pretty going into the drain, and it was really scary.
This whole scene was so good that this was what they used to promote the movie.
Yeah.
Like the very first trailer that I saw was just, and they kind of did it with the second one too, where they just dropped that scene with older Bev with that old lady.
Yeah.
Like they know what they've got. They know that this movie is awesome. They know that the scene is so good that just this in itself is enough to bring people in. We don't need to tell you anything else about the movie, but it's about this killer clown killing kids. Come see it.
Fun little Easter egg from that whole opening sequence is in the very beginning when you're in Bill's room and they're building the boat together. As it pans really quick past, there's a couple of movie posters on Bill's wall. One of them is Gremlins and one of them is Beetlejuice. And some people think that, it mutating with all of those rows of teeth is like a callback to Beetlejuice, and that one moment where he like opens her mouth or whatever, and there's like those rows of teeth that like go back for forever. And so some people said that was a little callback there. So who knows if it really is, but
I thought it was also cool that since this one takes place in the 80s, if you watch kind of in the background, you'll see like in the theater, like Batman was playing at one point.
Nightmare on Elm Street 5.
Nightmare on Elm Street
Yeah, that was
playing.
really cool.
There's a lot of good in this. It sets us up so well to have a film like, one, it's beautifully shot. Two, it scares us right off the bat. And then three, it leads us into what we're going to experience, because you drop right after that right into school. And like you talked about, Vince, earlier, the kids are just getting out for school. So it's the last day, yearbook signings, and it introduces you to every kid in this for what we're set up to experience for the summer, right? To get to know them. One kid's a new kid, a little bit, chubby, not very good friends with people. Bev signs his yearbook. But before this, Bev is teased. She's, I don't know, call it heckled. I don't know what's right. Harassed. I don't know.
Shaming.
Bullied.
Yeah, slut shame, bullied. Yeah.
Bullied's the
And
best word, yeah.
and then you keep coming past each of these kids,
You really
and-
see that with all the kids. Like all of them are being bullied by somebody. Ben he's hiding behind the school because the Patrick and what's the other boy's name?
Henry, what's
Yeah,
his?
so Ben is hiding behind the school because Henry and Patrick and all the bullies are out to get him simply because he's the new kid. Bill he got his pass from Henry because his brother died, but they're the losers, they're the losers club of the school, and apparently that these bullies back in the 80s had nothing better to do but chase kids around and beat them up. And Bev's going through the same thing, but with the girls of the school.
Yeah.
So they just kind of, as the movie progresses, find each other and find their group and their way
place together in the Losers Club.
Yeah, their way to protect themselves. Like not only from Pennywise, which I mean that's the whole theme of the movie is like together they're strong, together they can overcome their fears, but not only from this monster, but also from the fears of the real world, from the bullies, from the jerks. They can kind of build themselves up, pick themselves up when they're down.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty crazy though. Those bullies, I hate them so much.
Oh my
they
gosh.
they made me like uncomfortable because I was like, man, what a terrible time like to be a kid, to have bullies. Like these kids are using knives to carve their names in people's stomachs.
Just the one.
Yeah.
Like
So-
that guy was the what's his name?
Henry
Henry. He was definitely on the next level, and even his friends, his 3 bully friends, were trying to. They had brought up like, whoa, we're gonna do this. We're gonna carve your name in his stomach, and there's another scene where he's shooting a gun, and he says there's a target out there. It's a cat, and his friend looks at him like, man, don't make me do this. They were also being bullied.
Yeah.
I think that they kind of knew what Henry was capable of, and they were scared to stand up to him because they didn't want to be the ones at the end of his knife. You know, I read the book right before the 2017 movie came out, so it was fresh on my mind everything that happened in the book. And so watching the movie, I was very aware of the changes that they were making and why they, you could see why they're doing it, because a movie it's a completely different thing than a book, right? It's so hard to adapt a 1,200 page book into a movie. What they did was they actually combined, so they have both the characters in the movie. They have Henry and they have Patrick, but in the book they're two very, I don't want to say very different people, but Patrick's pretty much the crazy one. Patrick's the sociopath. In the book, he kills his little brother at one point. He's killing animals and hiding them in a fridge in the junkyard. He's the one who's just very, very violent. And Henry's a bully and the leader, but he's kind of like a little more like in the movie we kind of see it. He's abused by his father, his cop father. He's being bullied in his home life, and so he is kind of paying it forward to the kids around him. In the book, or in the movie, they've kind of combined these two characters. So Henry and Patrick they're both in it, but they kind of are, the personality of both of them are in Henry himself. He's so much more violent than he was in the book.
Yeah.
So much more capable of like doing these terrible things to these kids.
And while they did do that to sort of just give you the one main antagonist, at least for the bullies, they also kept Patrick a little bit for his same things. Because if I was watching a video earlier today, and if what I watched was right, also in the book, Patrick, he has homosexual like tendencies and stuff, and so there's also a couple places during the movie that you see him like, if you like slow it down and look at it, he like gives the kids like these weird like looks and like licks his lips and stuff at these kids who are obviously like 10 years or something younger than him. So even though they did sort of combine it for that main antagonist, they still in a lesser way kept that Patrick role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they would have cut him out completely, it would have been weird. Like he's a very prominent character in the book, and so if he would have just been gone, it would have felt wrong, you know.
And in this one, spoilers, he is gone pretty quick.
Yeah, in a cool way. Like,
Does he die in the book?
Yeah, I can't remember how he dies, but I think kind of all those bullies get their comeuppance in the end.
Man, I know that we sort of already moved past like which one of like the kids' fears we sort of relate to.
Yeah, sorry, I brought that to a dark place, and then
But
we skipped over it.
But one thing that I thought of, I don't even know if I'd say I'd relate to it, but I just thought was really interesting, and I feel like I would be scared in that situation, is in Ben's situation, right? The new kid on the block, he's this kid who he's done his research and everything, and he says, oh, like all these kids, they disappear way more than the national average here. He's like, adults appear 6 times more than, the national average, and kids are way worse than that. I would be afraid of him. His fear is sort of that same thing will happen to him. He's moved into this town, obviously against his will. It's his parents who he's moved with and everything like that. And he's moved into this town and he does his research and he's like, oh man, like kids disappear here like crazy. And so his fear when he goes is from after looking in the book about the explosion that happened at the factory, he sees like one of the kids with the Easter eggs that has like his head blown off before he sees Pennywise. And so that was, for me, it was this time watching, it was the really interesting one because I'm like, okay, I get that he's like afraid of that, but then I understood why, because he'd done his research, he knew what was up. And so he's like, I live in this town where kids disappear so much. When is that going to happen to me?
Yeah, he can kind of see it coming.
Mm-hmm. I think that I like how rewatching a film enables you to kind of put yourself in different characters' shoes than you were the first time you watched it. Because this time around, I gravitated more to the Jewish boy and
Stan.
his Stan, yeah. And like he's in the church, right? And I remember like there's nothing wrong, right, with being in a church building for most everyone, but I remember as a kid like being afraid sometimes when the lights were off in like the church, like running around the church building and being afraid of that. And here he is inside the synagogue, right? And he's trying to practice this thing which is so important to his father for him to know, because his father is the rabbi, his father is the leader, and he's like, if my own son can't do it, you know, what's going on? And he's like, go put it in my office, you know, the court. Is it the Torah? I don't remember. I think it's the Torah.
Yeah, it's the Torah.
And I don't want to get those two mixed up. Yeah, so he takes it back there, and then he sees the painting with the lady, like, kind of, like, comes alive. And I remember, like, as a kid having a very vivid and wild imagination, right? Like most children do. And I remember being afraid of certain, like, religious paintings and pictures, because some of them aren't very, like, they're not very, what would you call, rated G sometimes. Like, it's terrifying. And that kid, obviously this is like the creepiest picture ever. It's like the Scream, but sketchier. It comes alive and it comes after him, and he just panics, you know, and that's how it is. And so it, like, I just thought that was so interesting, because that even scared me a little bit. I was like, man, I could relate to that a little bit as well.
So we see each one of the kids' fears. Bill is scared of losing Georgie permanently. Stan is scared of the woman in the picture. Bev is scared because her father is abusive. Eddie, we haven't talked about Eddie yet. Eddie is pretty much a hypochondriac because of his mom. He has been abused in another way, maybe not so much physically, but I think mentally, in a way that he is very dependent on his mother, because she's convinced him that without her, he's doomed, gonna die. I can't remember what was. Oh, is the
His is the leper. Yeah.
So with him, he's been like abused to the point where he's like he can't. He's so scared that he's going to get sick in some way, and you can kind of see that throughout the film in the way that he is kind of talking with Richie. Which, by the way, this partnership of Eddie and Richie, these two actors, is so good. And apparently, a lot of their banter between scenes was all improv. So like these kids are great actors, and they're perfectly cast for their films. But Eddie himself, he's running around believing that anything could kill him. And so Pennywise uses that against him, and he becomes a leper that's like dying of all these diseases, and that even touching him, you know, could give Eddie the disease. And then there's Richie. And Richie, we don't really get what he's scared of for a long time until they're starting to figure out what's going on. Pennywise is trying to kill everyone in the town, and they decide they want to do something about it. So they go to Nibalt Street, where they find out that the one thing that Richie is scared of is the clowns itself. And you have this really cool haunted house scene, I don't know, that I just really like. I'd love to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, that one was great. That clown room scene. Mm-hmm. There's one clown in there dressed up as Tim Curry from the original, TV
the
series.
1990s one?
Yeah, which I thought was really neat.
You also see that Richie is, I mean, he says he's only scared of clowns, but he's also scared of like disappearing himself. He finds
going missing, because he finds that missing child poster, and that's where he freaks out. He's like, my mom told me, you know, like, I need to go home, I need to play it safe. And then you know, they go upstairs, and then there's that room where it opens up, and he's like, what the heck? And when he goes in there, right, there's all those freaking clowns, and then there's a casket that opens up, and what's inside of it? A freaking doll that's rotting with him. It's a freaking sketch.
Yeah.
It is so sketch. But let me say that I am super excited that we've seen in the trailer that we are going to go back to, I mean, you had to expect it, but they are going to go back to this house. Because this house, both in the entrance to the sewers and everything, as well as being a crucial part for all of their fears and everything, is a huge part in the movie. So we talked about how they go upstairs and how they get separated and everything like that. They have the doors and everything. One of my favorite parts is after Eddie falls down and Pennywise is coming for him, and then he leaves and everyone comes down and they try to help him, but then when Pennywise comes out of the fridge and he's all contorted and upside down, that's, like we've talked about, that's not as much a jump scare as much as it is even not like being super scared of clowns. I see that and I'm like, what is happening? This is freaky.
Well, fear fits anywhere is essentially what it's saying. Like, it can come after you anywhere. Do you know what we haven't talked about that I think is super creepy?
Real quick, I want to talk about that scene real fast. Sorry, hold that thought.
No worries.
I loved that scene because you could really see what Pennywise is doing. He doesn't go immediately for the kill. To kill Eddie, he plays with him, and he gets out and he does that weird little walk forward, and he's like laughing, and he does like a whole bunch of weird stuff just to like build up that fear in Eddie and really like taste the fear, you know. And to his downfall, because the kids end up coming down the stairs to save him, but that's also the moment that Bill figures out what's going on and that none of this stuff is real, and it's all in their heads. It's all Pennywise just messing with you in order to feast on your fear. What does he say? It's one of the best lines in the movie where it's like, it's at the end when he's holding on to Bill and he's like, you guys leave, otherwise I will feast on your flesh or what does he say? Like, I will chew on your flesh while I feast on your fear, or something like that. It's an awesome line that just really shows what he's doing. But sorry, Casey, you can go. I just wanted to really like, that scene was one of my favorites. Just watching him toy with these kids, watching him just mess with their heads and really freak them out.
Well, no, I think that is like, it's a good quality way of showcasing that a lot of times like fear isn't what we think it is. It goes back to kind of like Midsummer, right? When we talked about it, like for a lot of people, this was a joyous celebration, and for other people, it was terrifying. And for Pennywise, he knew how to bring the fear. And that little dance you're talking about, the little like those very calculated movements, those are creepy because he just comes, whoo,
Mm-hmm.
whoo, whoo, and then he's like saying stuff as he goes, right? And he's just making sure that you know, be afraid because I'm coming for you. Not like a snake, very fast attack, but very calculated. And I'm going to make sure you're afraid the entire time, because that's what gets him. Like, that's what fuels him. Not only the flesh and, you know, the blood and whatever, right? It is the fear, because that's like intoxicating to him. Like, he's waited all this time to taste them, to, you know, to have at him, and here's where he's doing. But I think one thing that I think is a lot that could go into like fear is where we haven't really talked about Mike and what he went through, because his is like a very personal touch as well, because like Bill, Mike lost people. Mike lost his family in a fire, and he's going to drop off, right, the lamb at the butcher to be sold, and he like gets up there and he's hiding from the bullies, but he goes back there, and then the back of the butcher, it just starts smoking, the door pops open and arms are like crawling out, and he's just burnt arms, yeah. And like his family, like they were destroyed by fire, like they were melted, literally, is what he said.
Trying to save him.
Yeah.
Which I think that's where his fear stems from, is blaming himself for his family, for his family dying, which I don't understand Mike's character as much as I want to.
Well, we didn't really get a chance with him in this. Like they used him well, but he just kind of doesn't do a lot in a big portion of the movie.
Yeah.
And then he has this really big moment at the end when he fights with Henry. But when he is there, we really get like, I mean, his story kind of shows that transition from child to adulthood really well. Like, like he goes from being that kid who can't kill the sheep, even though it's going to be like this monotonous chore for him or this job for him in the future. He goes from that moment of like, I don't want to do that, I want to hold on to my childhood, I want to like be me or whatever, to being pushed to the point where it's like, no, I gotta grow up, I gotta do these things. And then he has to end up using that against Pennywise, not only Pennywise but against Henry too.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of shows, like, the line there is like, you have to do this. Do you want to be a sheep and let other people pull the trigger on you, right? Or are you going to do it and step up and be a man, essentially, about it? And he has to make those hard decisions. Like, I feel like his character is put in there to be that extra source of strength, right? Like that friend who just kind of like helps you that extra little mile. Because really, we don't hear a lot of his backstory besides that. We don't really get a lot of dialogue from him. But his character is, it's like, you know, Little John. You need him with Robin Hood, and that's why he's there, essentially. Like, Robin Hood can't accomplish all tasks, but with Mike, all things are possible, essentially, in this thing. But no, I think that's really interesting, especially as they kind of get down, going into the well. They all have their parts to play, right, as they're going down. Because Bev has been taken by this time by Pennywise, as we kind of referenced earlier. And now there are all these, the other 4 kids are going down there, and they have their fears to face while they go down there. And it kind of like, each one kind of gets checked off. Anyone else have any good thoughts about this kind of subject, or do you guys have any other place you want to go?
I'd like to go back to Bev. Mm-hmm. I think watching her fear of becoming a woman is like terrifying through that room that shoots blood through the sink. Like it's the movie starts with her getting tampons and being shy about it, and like as a man I don't know what that's like at all, but like that is her through line. It's, you can tell that she cuts her hair because she's pretty, and she's scared to become a woman because of her father. Like that for me was like the most scary to watch. Like having to deal with that was, and that scene in that bathroom was my favorite. It was just jarring. I was not ready for that. The blood to come through the sink and the hair to grab her face, and her father to come in and not see it, and like, whoa, like it was great.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah. I don't know if it was practical or it looked practical. I don't know how they did that, but
Well, what's crazy about this scene, right, is it's a two-part scene. Essentially, you have two different parts within the bathroom scene. One is right when the blood spews out of the sink rank, and she's like covered, and she's like, "Dad, don't you see it?" when he comes in, right? But before this, what's crazy is she heard voices coming out of the sink, right? Like, Beverly, come play with us, or something like that, right? And then she goes and gets her dad's tape measure and drops the whole thing 25 feet all the way down. But when she pulls it back up, there's blood and hair stuck on it, right? And that's kind of what triggers the whole coming at her. And like life comes at you that way. And then later, right, when we go back in, she's like, she had like them, the friends of them, they'll clean it up. And then when her dad comes after her that time and she whacks it, like his blood is now on the floor of that bathroom. And that's when Pennywise snags her. And so it begs the question. I don't really know this. I didn't read the books, and I can't remember well enough on the old film. Is her dad like straight up dead?
He looks like it.
Yeah,
in the book, he doesn't die. In the book, she leaves and never finds out what happens to him, and she goes back to visit his home, and someone else is living there.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Also brings up the question: is Henry really dead? Because Mike pushes him down the well, but he plays a very big part in the future of the book as well once they get older, so he could very well be coming back in the next one. And then to wrap up the movie, like they figure out, like we talked about in the haunted house, they figure out that like they're and they go through kind of this crisis because Eddie ends up breaking his arm, his mom ends up like hunting him off from their friends. Stan is terrified of everything that's going on and can't take it emotionally because he's so terrified of what's happening. But Bill is the kind of the leader of the group and the one who has the drive, the motivation of finding Georgie and putting an end to all of this because no one else is going to do it. Brings them back together, brings them back brings the Losers Club back together to stop everything that's going on. And they end up going into the sewer. They follow Pennywise down. They have this big standoff at the end. Shout out to the dancing clown scene and the hundreds of YouTube videos that it spawned of Pennywise dancing to different songs.
Go follow that Twitter account. Have you guys checked out that Twitter account as well?
No, I haven't.
It's basically the same thing where it has the videos of Pennywise the Dancing Clown to different music. I think it's called Pennywise the Dancing Clown.
Yeah, it's so funny.
On Twitter, check it out. I think my favorite is Take On Me.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Check it out.
But they end up kind of working together and overcoming their fears and stopping Pennywise, forcing Pennywise back into the depths of darkness.
Well,
I hate to.
Oh, sorry.
I hate to pull stop because you're nailing everything that's going on, but I just want to talk about this part because it's the climax of the movie, and I think it's perfect. I think it's amazing. I mean, obviously we can say, oh yeah, like they overcame their fears so that they could beat Pennywise, but it's all so perfect because each one of them gets their personal resolution within this final action sequence, which is sort of what you look for in the climax of a movie, right? You want situations to be resolved. You want there to be, like a fitting finality to things. And so as they come to rescue Beverly, each one of them gets their chance to overcome their fears and beat the crap out of Pennywise, right? And so I am in love with the finale of this movie because I think it took, we've talked about it and we have to keep jumping around all these different people because somehow it took the story of these 7 kids in the Losers Club, plus Pennywise, plus Henry Bowers, like plus all these people, but made it into one solid story. And even though all of them have their backstory, it made it all into a perfect story with a finale that could happen pretty much all at once. I mean, there was stuff with Henry and stuff that happened at different times with him and his dad, which another crazy scene, by the way, with the television and all the kids and stuff. Yeah. But I don't know, just this finale was perfect for me. And I also thought it was pretty stunning visually because, like I said, I haven't read the book or anything, but seeing all the kids floating and finally understanding, you know, what that meant. We all float down here and everything, but also just visually, that part was beautiful. Seeing all this stuff and all of the kids just floating around with the light streaming in from above was gorgeous.
The scene towards the end when Pennywise, his jaw unhinges and all his teeth, is a slow, long scene, all of his teeth crawl out of his face. I thought that was beautiful too. And then the light in his mouth, that I know there's something there. It leads into where he comes from and what he is, and they don't reference it at all in this one, but it like hypnotizes Beverly. That's what like puts her in her trance, right? Mm-hmm. Which was pretty cool.
And he does that because she no longer fears him. Like he straight up, like she straight up calls him out where he picks her up and she's like, I'm not scared of you anymore. And he's like, oh, we'll see. And then all of a sudden all the teeth and everything crawl out and the lights come out. So he's like, I think those kids, I don't know if they're who they are floating around up there, but I kind of like imagine him kind of like a bear or something hibernating, or maybe not a bear because a bear eats and then, but he's pulling in all of his food because he only appears once every 27 years. And so maybe he's like stockpiling for the 27 years. She's not scared of him at the time, so he's not really feeding off of the fear. This is just me like spitballing. I don't know if any of this is true, but he does put her in that trance, like thinking like, oh, eventually I'm going to get around to eating you. If you're not going to be scared of me now, you will later, kind of thing.
Yeah. I loved that during that part we were talking about when his face peels off, that like when his face peels off and all the teeth come out and everything, that it peels where the red paint is, like on his face, like as it comes down the side, and as it goes up like over his head, it's exactly where the red face paint is on his extremely white face. It's really cool.
That's purpose-driven design right there.
Boom.
I don't know. You got something?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, back in the house, there was a scene where, was it Bill or Beverly skews Pennywise through the face?
Beverly.
What happened? What happened to him? Like, he stopped trying to attack and then went back. Did he stop trying to attack because they were all together, like unified, like fighting against him? Or did the thing go through his face actually hurt him? I can't tell.
I think a little of both, right?
Yeah, I think it's a combination because that's when they really started kind of standing up, because Beverly comes in almost fearless with Mike and a couple, like one or two of the other ones, and the two on the ground, they're trying to like kind of, because Bill's figured it out, like this is not real, this is fake, and what gives Pennywise power over us is that fear, and so he's starting to kind of stand up a little bit for it and get his friend out, and in comes Beverly like swinging full, like gets him straight through the head. And I think that freaks Pennywise out because I'm curious if he's been hurt before or if he's been touched before, because I don't think anyone else has ever stood up to him.
Well, because I think he also has a certain amount of control over what happens to him, because she spears him sort of out of the blue and it goes like through his face. But then as it goes through his face, there's blood, but the blood's like falling out of him like slow motion.
It kind of floats up too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think he has like somewhat of a control over his like material. I mean, obviously with all the stuff that he does, he has a certain control. So I think that's also part of it, is that, yeah, he's like partially hurt. And so he's sort of realizing, hey, I don't want to die right now. Gotta eat there's some kids.
Yeah, I think there's some sort of surprise there too. Like you said, he's never had a problem before. He's been able to just like do what he wants. He's had reign of the town for centuries. Yeah. And all of a sudden he's being hurt, and all of a sudden these kids are standing up to him and understanding who he is and what he is. And I think he's just needed to be like, okay, I'm hurt a little bit. I got to fall back and figure out what the heck's going on before I got to fall back and really pull these kids apart. Otherwise I'm going to have some trouble.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think that was a great question and kind of a good observation, because what is it? What is Pennywise like? I know we're gonna find out more about this, right? And some people would say it's this because of the book. Some people say this because of the made-for-TV movie, right? But like, I'm curious so much of what is Pennywise and what like. This sounds kind of weird and probably makes me sound a little creepy, but the mind of Pennywise when he's down there in his little shack dancing and floating seems like it might be a beautiful place if you're a creepy person. Because it's...
I guess Casey's a creepy person.
Well, like, think about it. The everything's floating and it has some... Like, it's synced together very nicely. It's not like disorganized space. It's just kind of going.
I did say that was a beautiful shot, I guess.
Yeah.
Got
See...
him.
It's not that creepy, I guess, when you think about it that way. But no, there's something going on. There's some sort of like symphony of the dead going on down there that might be beautiful to the creepy.
Yeah.
I just want to wrap up Bill's storyline real quick. So he gets the group back together, and then he's the first one to kind of abandon the group and run away after Georgie. Because he has to find Georgie, he has to like solve him, and then he gets put in that position of like finally finding him and either deciding like to believe the trick or
Letting him go.
or letting Georgie go.
Yeah.
Georgie. We call boats she.
Yeah. Do you think that's what gave it away, or do you think he
it.
knew it the whole time that it wasn't really Georgie? Do you think he came in there knowing that Georgie was really dead and that Pennywise would manipulate him? Or do you think that that's what gave it away was when Georgie called it the boat and it and not a she?
I don't know. I think it could be either one. You could argue either side. I think that probably pushed him, because I think he probably had a little bit of a voice in his brain saying, no, you know what he's doing. You know that deep down inside, even though you've wanted to believe it this whole time, Georgie is gone. And even if he wasn't, like, you know he's got to be doing something to try and trick you, to try and get you to believe something or try to make you afraid. And so maybe when that happened and he called it instead of she, it was just the pushing moment where you knew that it defied reality. And because of this special moment they had right before his disappearance, he said, okay, I know what I have to do because I know what's real now.
Well, I think too, like, Pennywise has used Georgie against him once before already in kind of like a really terrifying way. And so one, either he knows that he's just straight up gone and this is his way of like finishing it, essentially, like
Letting it go.
Yeah, letting it go, like becoming free of that burden and that worry. Or he's still holding on to what if he is, here and alive. And then during the dialogue between the two of them, that's when he's like, pull the little pistol plug pin thing on him. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he was, I don't know. It could go both ways, just like you guys were saying. And on the opposite side of that, if he didn't think that was Pennywise, maybe he was saying like, Georgie doesn't deserve to be like controlled by Pennywise, and I'm gonna do this. This isn't Georgie anymore anyway. Even if he thought it was Georgie at all.
That's such a surprising scene though when he shoots him. Like that was a big surprise to me.
That was Bill's transition.
Yeah.
It was from being the naive boy thinking Georgie is still alive to I'm growing up.
Yeah.
This is it. Like I have to make the hard decisions. Like Mike,
Because it was quite a literal change of him having to be a grown up, because it was his dad the whole time who was telling him, stop it, accept it, he's dead. And so it was quite a literal when he had to accept that he was dead. I am literally leaving the childish part, believing that he could be alive and following exactly what my father's told me and following his footsteps and going that way. So it's a sad moment, but it's also his triumphant moment, because even though a lot of times we can consider growing up and not being children anymore as something that's really sad, it's also some of the moments that define our character, and it defines who we are. And so that's also something I'm super excited for this new movie, to see with the new actors and everything, how these children used what happened to them as a kid to define who they became as they grew up.
Yeah. Speaking of being sad, we haven't really talked about Ben a whole lot, but I thought it was like tragic to see him having to be that, like, so like hopelessly romantic for Bev, and Bev being into Bill, and that is every single one of us have been in that
I'm
situation.
all about Ben and Bev, man.
Man, me too. I love it, and like Ben is like, I see myself in Ben. Like, I love you. Oh, no, okay. Okay, you can be happy, I guess. It's fine.
Because the thing is that he even tries, man. He writes the poetry. He does everything.
He kisses her and brings her out of the coma.
Yeah,
he writes her the poetry, like you said.
January Embers.
He does everything good. He does everything right.
And that's no one's fault, but that's like that's having that transition, realizing like, yeah, it's hard and you don't always get picked, Man, Ben.
Who's Ben in the new one? Which one's Ben?
He's like the buff guy. Who is? Yeah.
He grows up to become an architect and a very successful fit architect at that.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that actor? I don't remember.
I don't know.
He said the boy actor, the child actor, said he wanted Chris Pratt to play him.
Cool.
Yeah, which that would have been perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been amazing. Would have added to the already. I mean, I'm sure whoever it is will still do an amazing job. But I'm super excited for James McAvoy and Jessica Chastain and Bill Hader. I'm seeing amazing things about Bill Hader. About it. Have you guys seen it? Like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like Instagram
Apparently
stories.
he's like
I read
guy.
a review. They say he's incredible.
Wow.
So with that announcement of next week's movie, It Chapter 2.
What?
John Wick 3.
We're doing the John Wick series next. We'll make you wait.
Comes out this weekend, so everyone get prepped on that. We're going to go catch it in theaters, and we're going to meet back here. Michael, you think you're going to be able to make it back?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come back.
It's going to be rad, I think, to go see this. I actually have a costume all prepped up for going and seeing it in the theater. I'm going to use my Halloween costume from 2 years ago.
Are you Pennywise?
I'm going to be Georgie.
Nice.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. That's a super question.
No, I was born to play Georgie. This happened, and in the theater, I literally turned to my wife and was like, this character was made for me. This is my Halloween costume. And it was glorious. But no, I think that this film is going to be pretty crazy. I think it's going to be a big weekend for horror and thrillers. And so if you should be inclined and are going to go to the film, let us know your thoughts. Let us know on Twitter. Let us know on Instagram feed. Just kind of fill us in on how you felt about It Chapter 2. Because we're actually going to be putting out the podcast like on Monday or Tuesday morning. So it's going to be a big deal. We're going to get it kind of going and flowing and really be ready to be afraid.
Yes, please let us know your thoughts. We're all over it right now on Instagram and on Twitter. I know that on Twitter I'm talking about and retweeting tons of It stuff, probably more than I should, on the @PausRewindPLA Twitter account. Just getting ready to float back to Derry with you guys.
Yeah, check us out on Instagram too at Pause Rhyme Play Podcast. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us one of them 5-star reviews. It'd be awesome.
And Michael, thank you for joining us again on our podcast. We appreciate having your input and your insight and just your friendship.
Well, thank you guys for always letting me come back.
We'll take you. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in to the